it's like we're standing in a rushing river of money that's flowing right through our hands, right out the other side. So we get income, we spend some things, maybe we buy some things. Typically, then it's just all going downstream. So this is where it, I think, behooves us to say to ourselves, okay, how much money did I make last year? And how much did I keep that is going to continually compound and grow and stay with me for the rest of my life and maybe even into the next generation?
May, the first time you ever said that to me was just like a boom, like moment for me where I was like, probably none of it.
Welcome to the Bankless by Design podcast, where we rethink money, ditch the system, and rediscover what it means to truly thrive well. I'm Tricia Miller, mom of 7, financial coach, and founder of Thrivewell. Around here, we believe wealth is more than numbers. It's about freedom, stewardship, and building a legacy that lasts. If you're ready to challenge the norm and take back control of your financial life, you're in the right place. Hello, and welcome to the Bankless by Design podcast. Today, we're going to be continuing with our Becoming Your Own Banker series, and we are finally getting into the very first chapter of the book. We've covered page 85. We went to the introduction, but now we get into where Nelson Nash really starts diving into what it means to become your own banker. And he starts out by giving us a 30,000-foot view of money and banking and how it all works. So, Jonathan, would you go ahead and start reading our first paragraph today?
Absolutely. So part 1, becoming your own banker. Someone made the comment that if some authoritative power distributed all the money in the world equally among all the people in the world, within 10 years' time, 97% of all the money would be under the control of 3% of the people. I suppose that there is no way ever to measure the validity of such a statement, but I have the feeling that most people would agree that it is probably close to the truth. Even if the proportions were somewhat moderated, say 75% of the money would be under the control of 25% of the people, why do you think that this phenomenon happens?
Do you think this is true? Do you think that's what would happen?
Yeah, I've heard this thought experiment said in a different way, which is if you started absolutely everybody at zero, then the people that are in the top, 5% would wind back up in the exact same spot within X amount of time, right? Fill in the blank. So I've heard this idea before, and honestly, I do think that there's probably some validity to it because the reality is it's who understands money and the flow of money, right? I think that's really what he's trying to get at there. Do you understand the actual principles at play here?
I was also thinking too, the scriptures even says the poor you will always have with you. So, is that just a little bit related? I don't know. But I think we would find that even in the United States, that 1% of the population controls 50% of the wealth. I don't know exactly what the statistics are.
It's probably more than that, to be honest.
Right. Okay. So let's see what Nelson has to say is his answer to that question.
Perhaps some of the answer lies in the fact that most folks know next to nothing about the process of banking and its importance to their lives and their well-being. Banking is the most important business in the world. Without it, all business comes to a screeching halt. Whenever a business transaction takes place, money must flow from one party to another in a relatively short time, or otherwise nothing takes place. That flow of money must come from a supply source, a reservoir. That is the essence of what the banking business is all about. Someone or some organization has control of a pool of money that can and must flow at a cost to meet some need.
Okay. So clearly he thinks it has a lot to do with our financial education or lack thereof. In particular, though, we don't have knowledge about the process of banking. And he says that banking is the most important business in the world. I don't think we think about banking as a business. I think we've talked about that before, right? And yet all of us use the banking system. And without it, business comes to a screeching halt. So whenever a business transaction takes place, money must flow from one party to another. So let's just talk about what actually happens when we spend money and when we get paid. So when you're talking about that business transaction, I've earned an income. I have some money. So what am I going to do with it? Well, usually today, the first place that it goes is directly into my bank account. It used to be you picked up a paper check and you had to walk to the bank and actually deposit it. Now it's in there before You even have your hands on it. The bank has their hands on it. Then you need to pay your rent or pay your mortgage, pay your car payment, go to the grocery store. So let's just say you go to the grocery store, you buy some groceries. Your dollars just exchanged hands from your bank account. And where did they go?
To the grocery store, who eventually puts it into a bank account.
Right, right. Actually, it might even hit the grocery store's bank account before anything else.
Yeah, who knows?
Immediately, right? And then it goes from the grocery store bank account to the bank accounts of the suppliers, of the employees, wherever, whatever.
Sorry to interrupt you. Honestly, and one part of the financing equation that we're actually even missing there, because I just thought about it when you brought up, well, it goes direct to the grocery store's bank account. Well, actually, there's the intermediaries. It's the Visas, the MasterCards, the financing companies, right? So you pay the grocery store, that transaction immediately goes to, an ACH transaction, 3%, whatever, boom. And then to the grocery store's bank account.
You're not wrong. That's so true. So every single step along the way, even when the employee at the grocery store gets paid, that whole cycle starts all over again. It's in their bank account first, then they go and they pay their expenses. And every single one of those transactions goes through a banking system. So it takes us back to banking is the most important business in the world. Otherwise, business would come to a screeching halt, which is why you'll often hear when the economy is down, the government tends to say, hey, we need to get this economy, we need to get the engine started again. We got to keep those wheels turning. We have to keep people spending money because everything comes to a halt otherwise.
That's why things like Black Friday exist. They're literally designed as part of the market. It's a boost, seasonal boost, essentially.
Absolutely.
And actually, it's kind of interesting. This just made me think of something a little bit off the side here, but this was one of the initial issues with Bitcoin was that transaction speeds weren't quick enough to facilitate business. And so this is when they came up with the whole Lightning Network, essentially, which allowed for faster transaction speeds in order for it to actually compete with modern typical banking, because to his point, it has to happen quickly. So I just thought that was interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's beyond my knowledge. I don't know Bitcoin very well. But if I'm going to give you a product, right, or a service, I'm going to expect to get paid pretty quickly. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. And as you said, in today's society, especially, we are expecting things instantaneously. Right. Well, let me back up here. That flow of money must come from a supply source, a reservoir, and someone or some organization has control of a pool of money that can and must flow at a cost to meet some need. There's a lot in that sentence right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So someone or some organization, I'm going to guess that the largest organization there is central banking, and they control a pool of money. And control is a word that when we're talking about personal finance, we never consider. We talk about rates of return. We talk about arbitrage. We talk about making a higher wage. We don't ever talk about the importance of control. And this is something with the infinite banking concept has opened my eyes to the importance of control. Nelson has single-handedly done that because he who owns the gold makes the rules. And I think the flip side of that is also true. He who makes the rules owns the gold. I mean, that's not always logically correct, but in this case, I think it is most of the time. So control gives you more ownership, more power over the supply of money, and therefore the ability to make money with that money. Because as you'll see, the person who has control or the organization has the control of that pool of money, that money must flow at a cost to meet a need. So there's always a cost to your capital. And that word cost can also be, depending on who's in control, can be a value or an income from that flow of money. So don't always think of it just as an expense. It is to the person who has the liability, but the person who's owning that cash flowing asset that's bringing cash flow towards themselves, they're actually bringing in a positive value to go with that money because money has a time value. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I saying that clear enough?
I think so. And I would just agree with you, actually a little bit back up a hair to your statement of he who has the gold makes the rules as well. You know, I I think that that's interesting because you don't have to look much further than our modern crony capitalism, right? Like literally big business and government are married at this point in time and make rules that benefit those that have the money. Like that's kind of the way our government works right now is it is literally these massive conglomerates getting in bed with the government and a revolving door. We hear it all the time between pharmaceutical companies and government, between the regulation companies and private sectors that they're regulating, and there's this constant revolving door. And so it's just interesting because, like they're literally making the rules for themselves. So anyways, just thought that's
right.
Your
and
point's backed up.
Participating in a system that is not designed for our benefit. So the more control you have, the more benefit it brings to your life, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at there.
Yeah, I think then the following question becomes, okay, so how do we gain control? Which I'm sure Nelson's going to answer for us.
Exactly. But just getting your mind wrapped around that idea of control as something that's important, because the typical American today doesn't have a lot of control of their capital. It's controlled for them. They're told when they can touch it, how they can touch it, at what terms they're going to pay something back. They're constantly the one subject to the rules.
Yeah,
because they don't own the gold.
Exactly. And not to derail us further, but I think it's something that we just don't even think twice of, because I know just being a young kid growing up, you think, oh, my money in my bank account, that's mine. Like I own that, you don't think about any of the reality of, the fact that that's actually theirs, not yours. When you deposit, right. There's all of this that gets into that. But I do think it's interesting because we just don't think about it. Exactly. There's an illusion of control.
That
Perfect.
Isn't really control. We find that out in a crisis.
Yeah.
Who's really in control. All right. So let's go on with the next paragraph there, because I think he's going to get into some interesting stuff.
There is only one pool of money in the world. The fact that this pool is managed by any number of institutions, banks, insurance companies, corporations, and individuals in various countries with various currency denominations is incidental. To argue otherwise would be the equivalent of someone looking at the globe and observing that the Amazon River in South America flows into the Atlantic Ocean and commenting that this has nothing to do with the Indian Ocean on the other side of the globe.
Okay, just keep going there because I think it all applies together.
Okay. Nonsense. It is all part of a system. Observe that about 75% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. The sun heats it up, and some of it evaporates into the atmosphere, causing wind currents. The currents take the water vapor around the Earth, and it precipitates out in the form of rain, sleet, and snow, and somewhere along the way, some of it flows through you and me. Without it, we die. That makes it of vital importance. Pray tell, where does it end up? Right back in the oceans.
Okay, starts out with one pool of money in the world, and he likens it to this water cycle that we've all learned in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, where if there's one body of water, it's incidental, whether it's in the Indian Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean, or if it's going through the rivers, or if it's rising into the air through evaporation and then floating in the clouds over to another location and raining back down. And somewhere along the lines, it goes through you and me. Like, think about that in terms of money. Money is flowing just like that. Eventually it flows through you and me. That when he's referring to water, well, think about water for a second. Is it sufficient for us to drink water once and be done? We're good to go, right? No, we can't. We can only go so long without needing a constant flow of water going through our bodies. We must keep drinking water. That's why he says it's of vital importance. We would die without it. But eventually, even the water that goes through us eventually winds up back in this ocean. So there is this one pool idea. And the same is true with money. And the banking business is what keeps that money flowing. There's cash flow. And so I would add, besides the idea of control, is this idea of cash flow. And we typically don't understand the importance of cash flow until the cash flows also stop. So he's going to talk about this importance of having control of those cash flows and not all of it going away from us. So let's go ahead and read this last paragraph and then we'll kind of wrap this up.
The banking business is somewhat like that. Money flows from the pool through our hands to meet our needs, but somewhere in the process, it all ends up back into the banking system. It is all a matter of how much of the banking function do you control as it relates to your needs. This book is all about how to create your own banking system so that you can control 100% of your needs, becoming your own banker. Give it your close attention and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.
Okay. So again, remember that this is his opening chapter really to the book. And he's given us this 30,000 foot view of money being likened to the one pool of water in the world and the water cycle and how the water has to flow. And he gives this fantastic question here, though. How much of the banking function do you control as it relates to your needs? And I would say that for most people, very little. In fact, we would say
most none at all.
Know that, or most people would think that's not even possible.
Yeah.
They've never even considered that thought.
This is where it gets in the idea of rethinking your thinking. Because for me, again, this is not even a concept that crossed my mind. Just being a young, growing adult, right? As you're planning through college and planning, what I'm going to do with my life. It's my 9 to 5, get my degree and get my job and, do X, Y, and Z, the standard norm. And never once did it ever cross my mind of, hey, do I control my capital, my money, my financing? It just really is just something that we have to open our minds to a little bit, I think.
Right. Because otherwise we're just stumbling through life, working our way, paying our bills. And typically it's like we're standing in a rushing river of money that's flowing right through our hands, right out the other side. So we get it, buy some things, but typically then it's just all going downstream. So this is where I think behooves us to say to ourselves, okay, how much money did I make last year? And how much did I keep? That is going to continually compound and grow and stay with me for the rest of my life and maybe even into the next generation.
If I may, the first time you ever said that to me was just like a boom, moment for me where I was like, probably none of it.
Right. So I don't care if you made 50,000 or 150,000 or 500,000. If you didn't keep any of it in a pool that is an environment where it's going to be earning and growing and sustaining you, then what did you make? Nothing really. It just went out the door, right through the back door.
Ended at zero.
Ended at zero. So I think we have to rethink our thinking about what we mean when we say, I make this much money, or do I just spend this much money?
And that's something even, and for myself, where it gets into, what's the law that Nelson mentions, right? A luxury once enjoyed now becomes a necessity. Parkinson's law, right? I find myself being a victim of that immediately. I had my first raise as a newly employed, worker in the workforce. I was making 50,000 and then I went up to 65,000 and I don't know where that went.
That can happen the rest of your life if you do not get control of Parkinson's law.
Exactly. However, I will say for my own sake, since that change has happened, by participating in the infinite banking concept, I have started to set aside my own pool where there is at least some of that income is going into a pool that I control and I own and will continue to create financing opportunities for me. So at least I'm at the point that not all of it's going into the left and out with the right. So
exactly. And I think this is where I just wanted to add this, I guess, because Becca Wilhite's supposed little children's book, but it's really for us grownups. Promise you. Got cute pictures for kids, but the concept though is so brilliant because when Nelson is talking about this pool of water and we're talking about money must flow and I'm talking about this rushing river and everything going down past you, what do the beavers do with a rushing river? They build a dam. They start to dam it up. They create an environment where they can not only survive, it protects them from predators, but it also becomes a reservoir of everything they need to sustain life. They have a safe place. It's not built overnight, but those dams, I didn't realize they last sometimes 70 to 100 years. So even the beavers have long range thinking, apparently, but they have this wonderful little place that they create for their families and for their future so that they can not just survive, but they can actually thrive. And that water is no longer just flowing on by them, leaving them forever. There is a place for that water to flow into and then it creates a reservoir that they keep. So the infinite banking concept, when he asked this question, how much of the banking function do you control as it relates to your own needs? This is a way of keeping the financial resources of the family within the family instead of just rushing right downstream. I love that picture. That helps me so much. So I bring that about because I think that can help a lot of people. Becca's just awesome. So plug her book.
Good. I was hoping you were going to flesh out that analogy, because I do really think that, being like the idea of putting your hands into a rushing river and the money just going over top of it, and like, yeah, it's in your hands and it's going, but then it's gone, right? Just as fast as it came in, it's gone. So I do love the analogy of like taking that river and forming it up into a dam and damming up some of that flow. It doesn't have to be all that flow. It won't always be that flow immediately, right? Like it could be a little cut off of the river, to start.
They build that dam bit by
bit. Exactly. So like, I just think that that's such a perfect analogy for it. I was hoping if you didn't go ahead and flesh it out, I was going to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So now Nelson's coming back to, okay, I've started this book. I want you to understand what it's all about. It's about how to create your own banking system so that you can control 100% of your needs. So I want people to hear that, because while we just talked about the beavers building that dam bit by bit, and we have to start small. We start somewhere, but we get started. This is the goal, to be able to control 100% of your needs. Doesn't have to be 100% of everything, but if you can get to a place where you can control 100% of your financing needs, Nelson says is a stress-free, peaceful way of life, becoming your own banker. Give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future, because now you're the one in control.
I think that that's a goal well worth trying to achieve. He's setting us up for the path ahead, and it's the light at the end of the tunnel is a glorious one for sure.
Yes. And I just want to add this here. The name of this podcast is Bankless by Design. I know that might strike people funny at first glance or first hearing, but this idea of being bankless doesn't mean that we have no banking. It means that we are third party bankless. We don't need the outside banks. We're no longer dependent upon them. We will have 100% of our financing needs taken care of by our own banking system. So we are going to become 100% bankless, bank free by design, meaning on purpose. That's the goal. That's where we're headed. So in case anybody ever wondered why this podcast is called Bankless by Design, and why the business name is Thrivewell, so that we can be like those beavers and thrive well in our own self-sustaining environment, then now you have it. There you go. And of course, give it your close attention, and it will make a radical improvement in your financial future. Any final thoughts?
For me, all I can think of is thought of me being 20 years down the road and being able to finance things and my needs for myself and for my own family. I'm just so grateful that I'm starting so young that I'll be able to see that reality hopefully much sooner than most.
And Nelson went ahead of us, and he showed us. He's done it. He said for the last 30 years or so of his life, there was not a single family member that needed to darken the door of a bank. All of the needs in their lives, car loans, mortgages, tuition, you name it, could be accessed out of the family banking system from his own policies. So what a way to live.
What a path to follow.
Right. He has blazed the trail. All we got to do is give it our close attention. For our listeners, thanks for being here. Until next week.
Thank you all.
Y'all have a great week. Thanks for tuning in to the Bankless by Design podcast, where we're done with the system and we're doing money differently. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with someone who needs it, and visit us at banklessbydesign.com to learn how you can start living bankless by design.